Yeah. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's been a bad leader and an even worse manager for the majority of his professional life. Like, I got raised to scream at people when they didn't do a 98 out of 100. Like, that's how I was brought up in this industry. Turns out, not a great strategy. So, I mean, we're talking within the last 2 years that I've found my own voice as a manager and a leader where it sort of intersects with empathy.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everybody? Mike Gorhickman here, founder of paintergrowth.com, and I am with probably one of my favorite guests. I mean, top 3 favorite guests for sure. And one of my favorite people in the painting industry, Mr. Nick Slavik. What's up, man?
When you say top 3, I just assume number 1. You don't have to say it, but I'm seeing the look in your eyes, and I'm saying number 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. All right. We'll put you.
See how the conversation goes today.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm talking to Brandon Vaughn right after this. So.
Oh, this is stiff competition, man. I got to tighten up my shorts here real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some heavy hitters. But anyway, Nick, I'm really stoked to talk to you today again. Every time that we have a conversation, we get into some really, really cool topics. And last week I just had like a little bit of inspiration. I was like, I want to talk to Nick about community. Because I think that's something that you're really passionate about, something I'm really passionate about. I think we could get into some really good juice on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Very coincidentally, my 1-page weekly art project that I do, where I write about something 1 page and then read it on the internet, was about service and to the community and to your people and stuff like this. So this is dovetailing with what we're talking about today, man. Perfect.
Well, it all worked out.
Yeah.
So let's just start high level. What does community mean to you?
Yeah. So the definition of community has a completely different meaning to me this year than it did maybe even 12 months ago. Lots of deep work on myself as a human, on my business, on my friends and relationships. And before, it was always like, this is the town I live in. These are the schools my kids go to. These are the community groups I'm in. These are the veterans groups. These are the city council I'm a part of, or a chamber of commerce. And you sort of think of them as little entities, little moons and suns that surround a planet. And after this year, I have come to realize how grateful a human needs to be for the things, the humans, the systems, and the culture around them. And it's always awesome. Our schools are great. Our community is great. We have a great business community here. But you kind of take for granted that it's that good and there's that many good people in it. So really for me, it's when to come up with a definition or to see what something means something, you always think of sort of like inversion. And you think, well, what would happen if it wasn't here? If my community wasn't around me, we're talking about my immediate community. We're talking about friends, family, the physical town I live in. And then you bring it out to a larger extent, the PCA, our industry. I would be the loneliest human on the face of the planet. And that changes your life. So for me, community is, it's like ethereal. It's everything around you,
Yeah, I think community is something that if you don't have it and never experience it, you won't necessarily miss it. But once you have it, to ever live without it after that would be devastating, right?
Yeah.
It would be terrible.
Yeah.
So, to me, a community is locally the textbook definition of community, right? Your city, my kid's school, our soccer clubs, things like that. But I think in the world that we live in now, the online community is so valuable, especially when you are able to schedule in live meetups to make that to like bridge the gap between online and real life. It's such a cool spot with not even just the industry, but the way the world is right now and the ability to connect.
Yeah, you're literally talking to a guy who, like, growing up, we had computer class. We had a computer with a green screen. It wasn't, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have social media. And I saw the advent of all those things. And now you go from, we don't have a home computer, to now I'm a social media influencer. And I literally travel 20 times a year to physically meet up with the people I know from the internet. That bridges about the same sort of like increase in technology as my grandma did. My grandma was born in the early 1900s, milked a cow by hand, and now my grandma texts me on her cell phone with emojis. Like that's the start point and the end point of her experience with technology and mine is pretty vast, and it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes in the future, especially because it's not this for me. This technology and community, people think that there's okay, people don't think, people know that that creates a chasm, right? The more that we spend time on our cell phones, the more that we spend time on our computers, it divides us from other humans. For me, it's been the complete opposite. It has been the catalyst for some of the deepest friendships I've ever had.
If you use it intentionally.
If you use it for like anything, right? If you use it for good, magically you get a good outcome, right? If you do it to just get on there and post hate comments on people's painting videos,
Or I think I get some of those. The more realistic one though is sitting on Instagram and just scrolling mindlessly, right? And we all do that because it's designed by thousands of super smart engineers to make it as chemically addictive as possible for you. It's really hard to get out of that. But if you use it intentionally with the intention of I'm going to develop friendships, I'm going to develop relationships, I'm going to go meet people in real life and see how I can help others. It's a completely different tool that way.
Yep. And it's really interesting people's experience with these communities. And it's so interesting, like physical community, virtual community, industry community, spiritual community, things that are close to you and far away from you. People divide along two ways, which is either every time you interact with a virtual or in-person community, you add friction or you remove friction. And it's amazing how eerily sort of like consistent humans are with that.
Yeah. So when it comes to kind of creating this community, I want to dive into, I'm going to start at the micro level and then we're going to kind of build our way outwards. I think I'm just kind of figuring this out. So let's start with Slavik painting. Okay. What type of community, I mean, first of all, do you feel like your employees have created a sense of community within the organization?
Yeah, most definitely. And you're going to see different forms of community, different interactions with community based on who those humans are, at what part they play in the business, how long they've been here, and everything else. So
yeah. Okay. What are some of the things that you've done to foster that? Because it's not like you just get a bunch of people together and it becomes a community, right? There's intentional action that you have to take as the leader to develop that.
Oh man, listen. So I know you know just enough about me to know that most of the things I put out on the internet are a series of unsatisfying solutions to problems that we all have, that we all kind of know what to do, but we just kind of don't want them to be true.
It's the vegetables.
This is the mother. This is our vegetables. This is our drink water, move your body, eat vegetables sort of thing. This is the truth that we all know, but we don't want to realize, which is it's not axe throwing. It's not pizza parties. It's not a shirt with their name on it. It's not, posting about them on social media. It is that mundane, sometimes unsexy, grueling consistency of being an empathetic human, a good manager, a good leader to them every single interaction that they have of every day. It's not about the one time a year where you take a group photo, you go to Topgolf and you do this. It's about, what does their day-to-day life look like? When they need something, are you there? Are you getting up every day and actively making a plan to remove friction from their life? Are you going out there recruiting the finest people on the planet so they can have good coworkers? Are you making a plan to be the most profitable company ever so that you can pay them more than the average human in your company? Like those things, if you want to talk about making people happy, those three things are way better than any token party that you can give somebody.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to be cognizant of the difference between like culture and community.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So community in my like just definition, and this is like discovering the words for the first time in this order, right? So community in terms of a organization would be like, do the employees trust each other? Do they call each other when they have a problem? When they get together, are they standoffish or are they supportive? Do they help each other hit their goals, right? I feel like those kind of things contribute to community, whereas culture would be more on like how they're the outward view of how they're acting on a day-to-day basis, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. There's a weird. I'm trying to like make a clear delineation and make some differences between those, and I feel like there's a big demilitarized zone between those, a big gray area where some overlaps into the other. And maybe this answers your question, maybe not. But I'm open for any amount of pushback. So I honestly believe if we're talking about the culture being sort of like how people operate in the business and the community being maybe something outside of that or above it. Um, I'm actually of the belief that you should not expect people to become friends or build this community outside of the culture. It can happen and it's great when it does, but if that's your goal, you're going to be pretty disappointed in life, right?
Mhm.
Like there's tokens of, tokens are things we can touch and feel, like little artifacts and things. There's artifacts of community, and I think we're both trying to come across the definition of community as it regards to this conversation. But when your guys are wearing your shirts outside of business with their friends, they're speaking well about this. Maybe even they find friends within your business, or their families and their kids become friends. Things like that. That does happen, and I think it's probably good to say if you expect that, that's pretty unhealthy. But it's great to have it happen.
Yeah, I think within the confines of business, having
Yeah.
like those positive relationships, like even with my company, we don't have a ton of people. I think we're at like 24 people or something, but like on team meetings and stuff, like people are like obviously talking outside of the meetings. They're obviously like communicating, they have like inside jokes and things like that. And so they've kind of created a little community. But where was I going with that? Yeah, I think you're right. Expecting them to do it outside of like be friends outside of work. That's tough. That's a tough ask.
Well, you're setting yourself up for a lot of failure because, I can say some things that outwardly sound a little spicy or a little negative, but expecting all your employees to be your friends is pretty unhealthy.
Mhm.
Expecting your employees to think about you and your business as much as you do, it's pretty unhealthy. So just having like you're going to set yourself up for a lot of pain and suffering if those are your expectations. So, kind of like under promising and over performing. It's like, hey, when we're here, let's be quiet professionals. Let's help each other. Let's help each other solve goals. Let's be there for each other. But outside of this, don't expect much outside of that. Because honestly, like your business is your passion. Mine certainly is for me. And expecting others to have the place that gives them some money during the day to be their passion, only a small percentage of Americans ever experience that, especially without ownership. Some really good people just want a job, and they're not bad people for wanting that.
No, absolutely not. Like there's so many things that go into that in terms of like motivation and what you want to do and stress level and risk tolerance. And if you just have low risk tolerance, low stress level, you want a really good job with a great employer, like there's nothing
Yep.
wrong with that, but you can't expect them to want to stay for 2 extra hours to finish the project so you can start the next one the next day because your job costing says it has to happen.
No, no, that's it. And you can bump like over a very long period of empathy and standards and support and consistent management and leadership, you can move more of your people a little closer to that. But if you expect every one of your people to put a helmet on and run towards a brick wall for you, that's not a proper expectation any manager or leader should have.
So, a slight change of gears, and I don't know where this is going to go. But last week, I experienced what I felt was the absolutely peak of community at home,
No
and
way.
it was Halloween.
Uh,
So, the concept of Halloween, you think about this. You have children out after dark,
yeah,
knocking on strangers' doors, taking literal candy from strangers, and everyone is working at it together. I was
yeah.
outside. We just moved to this new neighborhood. Outside, it was literally shoulder to shoulder of kids and parents in the street. Like we had over 250 kids. And
Wow.
this was, in my opinion, like as I was walking through, I was thinking about, I'm like, this is community. This could never happen without without a strong community and just a shared understanding of what's going on, right?
Yeah, that's pretty incredible because when you think about it's not for the parents, it's definitely for the kids, and there's some time and money involved. And yeah, it does bring people closer together. And it's not, I mean, the parents could probably get some community and some enjoyment and some togetherness, but yeah, it's really for the kids. So people like banding together and doing that, and especially over many, many years and decades and maybe centuries is pretty incredible. Yeah.
But I'm like aware that not every neighborhood is like that, right? I'm sure neighborhoods that you don't get any kids out. It's just either not safe or there just isn't that sense of community.
No. No, I lived in quite a few neighborhoods. I mean, you're talking to a guy who lives in the wilderness now, and every one of my neighbors has a light on. And instead of going to 30 houses now, we go to 4.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. It's the same thing. It's yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I never thought about Halloween as a sense of community, but that is a wonderful thing, man.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was very like, man, we got the right neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, listen, gives me an indication what kind of neighborhood you're in, Mr. Full-size candy bar, huh?
Well, so my wife did get full-size candy bars.
Oh, geez, surprise, surprise.
We only got like 48 of them, and they were gone in like 20 minutes.
Of course.
So by the end of it, we were like giving out soda waters.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Yeah, like re-giving out our kids' candy they just got. So let's move on from community in the business, community at home, and let's look at community in terms of a peer group. So you've done a pretty cool job at creating, your retreats that you do, which I would love to get to one day, planting the seed, and also within the PCA on helping the PCA kind of build a community of members. But like in terms of having a professional organization to create a sense of community, like how does that fit into the average person's day to day?
I mean, if I'm being honest, it doesn't. I mean, when you look at you're talking to somebody who got raised in an industry in a way that teaches you that is the opposite thing of what you do, that all these other people are enemies. So I was in this industry for 25 years and I just struggled alone. Every problem was new to me. Every solution had to be made up from thin air. There's nobody you can call for help. All 3 of those things are completely false and stupid when you actually think about them. So this is only new to me. I've only been involved with the PCA for maybe 7, 8, 9 years, give or take. And I've only culminated this group of people in the last bunch of years. And it's completely new to me. And I'm still coming to grips with what it is. So when you look out over at our industry, there's 300 to 330,000 painting contractors. And there's, I don't know, 1,300, 1,500 PCA members. I mean, we're talking of a fraction of 1% of people who have found this beautiful, loving community. So it is lonely out there, man. And honestly, how does this community play into their lives? They don't even know it exists, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? What was the number that you just referenced? How many total contractors?
In the country?
Yeah.
Yeah. US, we're probably looking at, so stats will differ. I land on about 330,000, but you see anything between 260 and 330. So yeah, right. We keep a commonly held set of stats that we reason with every year. I land on 330,000 painting companies, and we're probably looking at 500,000 painters, give or take.
I thought our numbers internally that we found are like closer to 200,000 painting contractors. But even then, like whatever it is, between 200,000 or 300,000, and only like not even such a low single digit percentage of membership finding the PCA. It's like it's kind of makes you wonder, like what's everyone else doing? Like where are they paying attention to? Where are they spending their time? What do they read? What do they listen to? Like how can you get a hold of these people?
Well, so here's I'll give you the origin story of the average painter, because this was me, and then we can talk about community. And the reason that so many people are disconnected is because of it starts with a foundational level that they are not biased towards community. It's not obvious to them to form community to help this out. The average origin story of a painting contractor, residential in the United States, is I'm working for MGH. He's paying me $30 an hour, right? In his painting company. I don't feel like there's a future here. Maybe I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Maybe you're being overpaid, but it's all a feeling, right? So he says, I'm going to go start on my own because I'm a good painter, and I'm going to charge $38 an hour instead of 30. And you know the deal. You've looked into painting companies' financials all around. Yeah. The minimum you should be charging and producing is about 75. And people have no idea. You get hit with a tax bill. You think running a painting business is just painting and charging more money. You weren't prepared for this. And then you're out there just alone. The typical, this is going to may come off as spicy. It is not spicy. It is accurate. It was me, and it is most of us out there. The mind of a technician at the employee level, a W-2, is not that of success comes through the agency of others. The mindset of an average technician W-2 is, I have so many things going on in my personal life. I need to make sure that I'm taken care of. So you only see about 10 feet in front of your face, not 10 years in front of your face.
And the concept that more hours equals more money, right?
More hours equals more money. But I'm even seeing in the industry now where more hours equals I'm a sucker too.
Mm.
And it's not putting me forward, even though any math problem will tell you it is. So most entrepreneurs, if you go to the car dealership business, open collaboration. I mean, these Chevy and Ford dealers in my towns, open friendships. Like they want to collaborate together. They're professionals. They understand that they win with others. It is not obvious to the average technician, W-2 painter who starts their own business, that you win through the help of others. And that's where we are in this industry. It's not because these people are less than or not smart. They weren't set up, just like I wasn't set up, to naturally think that it's an obvious step to join a trade association, reach out to help with consultants like you, or even form friendships with other painters.
Yeah. I mean, even the guys who like find our program top 1% of mindset, growth oriented business contractors, we have to do a lot of fundamental teaching on what the difference between a variable cost is and a fixed cost. And that's like, it's like so fundamental. It's like, how do you charge if your phone bill goes up? It's like, okay, well, we need to go back and like talk about how variable and fixed and gross margin goals. And I did a meeting on hourly contribution margin.
Oh yeah, man.
Right now you're talking
now you're speaking my language here. Yeah.
That's my number one favorite metric in business is what's my hourly contribution margin, right? How much profit I'm making per painter per hour. Yep. And so if you can track that, all of a sudden, do I take on a cabinet job or do I stick with interior repaint jobs? That question becomes a lot easier because you're actually making it logically instead of, oh, I feel like we're a little bit slower when we do cabinets and my guys aren't quite as system. Well, what's your CM per hour?
Optimal words. I feel like, yeah, that's different.
Yeah. I mean, so what we found is that, and this isn't meant to be a pitch or anything, but like what we found is like the guys who come in and truly like use our community, our Slack group on our calls and our events and stuff, like they see, regardless of if they watch our videos and like the training stuff, they just enjoy the community and be a part of it and contribute. They see the most growth.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And it's just because they have the support network, they have the structure, they have the resources, they have it almost feels like family. Like we get together in the events, everyone's hugging and, all this stuff. And it's a pretty cool thing for a bunch of like painters to get together and like literally hug each other and have fun and have meaningful conversations and do something that most people never get to experience.
Yep. Agreed. And it's so data and feelings. The feeling is the people who have friends, the people who reach out for help, the people who use resources and hold themselves accountable do better. And we're updating stats for the PCA. And the last time we updated stats for the PCA, when we surveyed all of our members, the average PCA member, not just because they paid their dues, but because they actually formed a community of like-minded people and asked for help, were 15 times larger and longer lived than the average painting contractor in the US. Mm-hmm. So that's where the rubber hits the road, which is on average, getting involved with the community, asking for help, collaborating with others will give you a 15x competitive advantage over the average painter in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to just be devil's advocate and say there's some causation that isn't necessarily correlation. Correlation is not necessarily causation, right? Because there's the financial barrier. What is it, $5.99 to join?
Oh yeah, and there's super sneaky discount codes. You show up at an event, you're going to find yourself at a half price discount pretty well.
Sure. So. Whatever, right? There's good to know. Got to get me one of those discount codes for my members. Remember that.
You talk to me offline. We can work something out.
Okay, cool. They'd love that. We'd get you a ton of members. But those W-2 that goes off and charges $38 an hour, the concept of investing, spending, wasting $600 on a membership. Yeah. Why the hell would I do that? That's $600. I can buy a new TV.
Yep.
Right. I think that's the mindset that a lot of people are like really struggling with. It's like, why would I invest when I can go buy something that's different that I can see and feel and touch?
Agreed. Two thoughts when it comes to mind is as the PCA, we should own that's our problem. Visibility. We've existed for 140 years. We've had 140 years of opportunity to capture 330,000 painting contractors, and we have not captured them all. That's something we need to own. You could take a look at a lot of our recent stats and stuff like that and say, in the last 50 years, maybe even 80, no era or generation of people in the PCA has made a larger leap forward, but we're still not reaching 330,000. So really we need to own that. But also you go back to that just incessant problem of, remember, this was me. I worked for my father. My father did not have an opportunity for me. So I left on my own. I was unprepared to run a painting business. I had to figure this out all on my own. So I thought, until I found other people, but it wasn't obvious to me to do any of this. So until you change the humans who come in or the mindset of coming in, or educate people on what it's like to run a basic business in the United States, this is going to be the large majority of our industry for a very long time. And I would make the argument the PCA and people like you are all assisting, and we're making headway. We're seeing the needle move, but still we're working at the margins. I mean, we're talking 90% plus of all painting businesses in the United States, regressive mindset, $43,000 a year. They'll be out of business in 18 months and life is misery, man. That's just how it goes. But that gives us a little extra energy to try to make a change in that.
It does. I mean, it would be interesting thought experiment to work through as the chairman of the PCA. Like, how could you get, 10% market saturation? How could you get to 10% of the market, 30,000 members? Because that doesn't seem like it's not that big of a number.
Oh, so here's where I'm a big fan of yours. 2 years ago, as the board chair of this organization, it is sort of like, I only vote when we break ties, and I'm sort of there to administer meetings and sort of cultivate this thing and make sure we're accomplishing our mission. But there are a few times where I have to do some very specific things for this organization that is not other people's responsibility, like come up with a 5 to 10 year strategy and then pledge or like propose it to my people, and people who have much larger businesses than me, are much more sophisticated than me. I started with that exact theory. We are now operating under the strategy that I proposed with the help of all my friends, of course, that we are going to influence the influencers. We're going to force multiply, and we're going to try to capture 1% of the industry first. We're going to try to capture the upper crust. We're going to shave off all the Matt and Maggie Kuipers, all the Chris Elliott's, all the Dave Grahams, all the Dave Scaturos out there. Once we get those people in there, that will double to triple the size of the PCA. And then you start to work towards that critical mass where you influence the influencers. When Christian Manhart and Dave Scaturo and Michael Gore Hickman are all part of the PCA, you guys touch a lot of people. The PCA cannot physically touch 330,000 contractors. We need to influence the people who influence them, create a great value prop, and do that. And like I was sharing you before this, we've been enacting that for a year and a half now, give or take. Wild success so far. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to handing this off to somebody else that can do it even more. But right now, plan A, we've gone through all those vision sort of things of what would it be like to have this much and this much. And we said, well, okay, we want to get to 50% of the industry, but number one, 1%. We want 3,300 contractors, the best in this thing.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you return my calls.
That's it, man.
I thought it was that you liked me.
Well, no. So personally, I like you. You just happen to be here and you happen to be an influencer. So, and you share our core values, which I will mutually promote everything you do, just like you promote everything that we do. Because we're all, I mean, literally, if the PCA wins, you win. If you win, if you find yourself with 2,000 contractors, all making more than $3 million a year, magically, there's going to be two circles, MGH and the PCA. And a lot of those people are going to be the same. So we all win together, man.
Yeah. You know, Mr. Zig Ziglar, the great late great Zig Ziglar, right? He's you can have whatever you want in this life as long as you help enough other people get what they want.
Pretty good advice, man.
Yeah.
Pretty good advice. Success is through the agency of others, man. Nobody does this alone. And that might be the best sort of like pseudo definition of all this community, which is, it's all the great things in life come through other people and with other people.
Mm-hmm. Help without expectation.
Yes.
Ooh,
now you're getting into altruism. Ooh, that's
yeah. But I mean, it's kind of important for community to have people like that, right? Not everyone's going to be like that, but at least be the. Oh man, so many quotes coming out. be the friend that you want to have.
Yeah, that's it. And you hear every time you start talking about like, well, I wrote my writing assignment this week on like service and servant leadership, and it's the same thing. You start getting into this thing of altruism, and some people will argue that there is no pure altruism. Everybody has some motive, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and at some point you're like, just do good stuff. Who cares if it benefits you or not? Some of the greatest things in our industry have happened because somebody had a really big value proposition to themselves. Collateral damage was helping the industry. And I've seen that many times over and over, especially being with a 140-year-old nonprofit in the industry. If you turned everybody away who had a profit motive, we wouldn't have made any progress in this industry.
One of my favorite, I mean, every now and then you'll come across someone who's like not a good boss, right? They're like mean to their employees or whatever.
Every so often, I would say quite a few times.
Yeah, like every couple times a day. No, but but they do it because they're like, I have scarcity mindset. We need to do this to be profitable. I need to pay them less so I can make more, and all this stuff. But what I realize is that the most selfish thing that you can do that's going to make you the most money, the greediest thing that you can do in business, is to treat your employees super, super well and be a great leader, because you're going to get so much more out of them.
Oh, easier said than done.
It is. But like, I'm really jumping into that this year, the last 18 months, like just diving into giving my team like more reign, and like just like investing tons into them, into their training, education, and giving them time off and all this stuff. And like when they're working, and I love it. Right. And they want to be here.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's been a bad manager and a bad leader and an even worse manager for the majority of his professional life. Like I got raised to scream at people when they didn't do a 98 out of 100. Like that's how I was brought up in this industry. Turns out not a great strategy. So, I mean, we're talking within the last 2 years that I've found my own voice as a manager and a leader where it sort of intersects with empathy and listening and asking questions. And just like the first thing I said in this interview, you want to talk about unsatisfying and nearly impossible. You take a guy like me and you say, I mean, all I do is have solutions. You come to me, I got solutions, and I'm going to cut you off and I'm going to give you a solution. Now, success and profit and consistency and stability is all done through listening, quiet contemplation, empathy, asking questions. This has literally been like the 2 hardest years of my entire life. Like buying vans and tools and getting people and marketing is the easiest thing on the planet compared to changing myself into a screaming firefighter cowboy, into a quiet, contemplative manager. Honestly.
What was the thing that made you realize that something had to change?
Oh, this is an easy one, man. Last summer, out of a 6-person leadership team, 3 people left at the height of the summer. And
we talked that September, right after that had happened.
It was an interesting time, my friend. So I had $1.2 million of sold work on the books ready to be produced. I had no project managers and no coordinator. And that was the catalyst I needed. And it was a beautiful catalyst. More amazing things have happened in my life since I was forced to change like that. It was probably the majority of me not being a great manager. There is a truth to a business outgrowing some of its people, but when you put both of those two together, I don't blame the people who left my business at all. They needed a better manager. But yeah, that was a great life lessons. And man, almost everything interesting in my professional career has happened in the last 2 years professionally. It's just been amazing.
Yeah. I can almost fully relate with that sentiment of the most interesting things in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Even in the last like 14 months since I started this podcast, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
So 2 questions coming off the back of that. Number 1, have you done Brandon Vaughn's Hire Bus employee personality testing?
I have not. 2 to 3 years ago at Expo, he showed me and Jason Paris that, and that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
It's come a long way. You should check it out.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that when it comes to like CEO, like they have a graph for like if you are going to be a good CEO.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not. So I do line with a lot of the things, but there was like a couple of the things that I'm like way off on. And one of them is criticality. So I'm really low on criticality, meaning like I always see the best in others. I'm like, I have one conversation, one interview with someone. I'm like, oh, you're going to be
Oh, this is going to
awesome.
be great. Everything changes today.
But he was like telling me, he's like, as an entrepreneur, as like a visionary, you have to be, you know, chronically optimistic,
Yeah.
or else you'll never get anything done. And then I'm also really low, not really low, but like lower than I need to be on militant leadership. So I'm not like a military type 1, 2, 3, like
Consistent,
8
rigid standards,
Yeah,
SOP.
I'm like, let's figure this out. Let's work together. Let's figure it out. It's not like I have this plan all dialed in. So I don't make a great CEO. So there will be a time when I have to pass the reins off to the CEO, but that will be when we get to the more like not coast phase, but like less firefighting and more.
You get to the stage of professionalization where it needs a short sleeve, button up shirt, tie office manager to run
Yeah,
everything that does consistent office hours, consistent one on one. Like we're talking about the exact same thing, man. When I talk about the 2 hardest years of my professional life, making that change from cowboy firefighter, founder, scaler to professional CEO, president, daily manager, operations manager, you're not supposed to be able to do this. And people who
maybe
are
not.
like,
No, I don't think. I don't know if I
you
could do
know,
that.
people who are followers of traction believe in the, the visionary and the integrator, and those are two very different people. And what I know that I'm at a stage right now where I can't afford a pure integrator in my business. So guess what? You find yourself in a position where you're not optimal for it, but what do you want? You want time and money freedom. So put your big boy pants on and get out there. But it is hard. And it's interesting that I have said the same thing you just said, which is surprisingly, actually, I'm not actually a good CEO. That is more common than all of us think, right? All of us think that everybody out there is the business owner and we're all alike. You and I are probably, I'm a real generalist. I can do a little bit of integration, a little bit of visionary stuff, but I'm a way better founder, scaler, catalyzer, things like that than I am just a day to day. The most of our industry, when we talk about why that 99% of the industry hasn't joined professional organizations, asked for help and things like that, it's because of that. They are cowboys, they're firefighters, they're founders, they're scalers. And the typical reaction is not to reach out to others to help. It's just rugged individualism. I'm going to climb that mountain and see what's on the other side. And that's great if it's harnessed and pointed in the right way. But for me, it was 25 years of pain and suffering and basically martyring myself. So 2 roads down that same path, man.
Yeah, man. And now and now it's just becoming so easy to get the support once you can recognize it. Like I'll so often get into Facebook comment fights on like my posts and stuff about
Oh
people
no.
who just don't understand the concept of using other people as leverage to build your business, but also like you can do that in a way that helps them too. It's
Oh,
like,
for
oh,
sure.
you built your business off the backs of others. Like that's what I hear. It's like, no, man. It's like you have an opportunity to be a good leader and provide
What
people
did
great.
Amazon do? Nobody built that by themselves. That's off the backs of millions of people, right? But
That's
that's not
kind of a bad
negative.
example though, because Amazon does underpay their workers and like union
Oh, yeah.
busts and all these things. But like a lot of great organizations, like Tesla, for example, they pay their employees really, really well, and they give everyone stock options. And they work really hard, but they love to work there because they're mission driven. But that's not taking advantage of people.
No,
That's giving people something really cool to do that they otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to do.
agreed.
Wow, took a turn. So before I forget, when it came to shifting from being this visionary to being this integrator, so to speak,
Yeah.
and for anyone else who doesn't know what that means going from the person founder, big picture guy to being the guy who's doing the weekly one-on-one check-ins and everything.
All the
Um,
dirty work.
yeah, all that stuff. I just brought on a part-time integrator here. She is an absolute monster. It's amazing. Definitely highly recommend. But to what were some of the things that you had to do personally to hone those skills to become the person that you needed to be?
Simple but not easy, right? There's a list of things that I get energy from that I'm good at, and there's the things that rob me of my soul and I'm not good at. And there are many more things in the category of rob my energy and I'm not good at that my business needs right now. And so basically, you just have to look at that list, be very honest with yourself, and I think one of my very developed skills is that I'm accountable. I take ownership of everything, sometimes when it's not even my fault, but it's served me very well. And taking a look at that, and you can say, well, I'm just going to hire that out. I don't like it. You say, that's not reality, man. At our level, you're not going to find somebody for the amount of budget I would have for somebody to come in and do those day-to-day things. I couldn't find the person that I like right now. So you only have one other choice. Put on your big boy pants and just say, listen, these are things that don't give me energy. I may not even be good at, but what does good look like in that? What is success? Who can I learn from? Who can I reach out who actually does that well? Take a list of those traits, those things, those schedules, those routines, and apply them to your life. And then you just suck it up and do it. I mean, it's not any more difficult than that, which is like, I take a look at my week most of the time, and I look at all the things that I do in service of my people. And I think this is the old regressive Nick. If all of you would just do your job, I wouldn't have to do any of this stuff. And that's how I've lived my entire professional life. Now I've got myself to a good enough position now where I've learned to get energy from these things. I've learned that the satisfaction comes after you do them, not in the anticipation of doing them, like visionary tasks, right? Because many visionary tasks are super exciting, but mundane when you get into the spreadsheets, right? It's just one of those things. So I have adapted a very healthy professional way of becoming an integrator. It doesn't always give me energy, but like not everything does in life. You can sometimes just do things you don't want to do them well and move on with your life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Brandon keeps coming up here, which is unusual, but one thing that he told me after looking at my results of the test thing, he said, Mike, you're really good at getting initiatives started and then building a team around you to continue them. Because like I have very low follow through, but I'm really good at finding people around me to follow through on the things that I start. And so far, that's paid off well. I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone, but
I was going to say, it's like, it sounds like you know thyself enough that you're going to need integrator support. And you did that, because one of the worst things that we do, and you could argue every single 99% of all paint businesses in the United States do just that. We're going to get into historic restoration. We're going to get into floor epoxy. I did all the research. Here you go. Start doing floor epoxy. And then there's no support after that. And then you're like, well, my employees left. They're all angry. Jobs are half done. It's like, yeah, there's not a day-to-day manager, man. They don't care about the vision of your company. They care about their experience every day. And if there's a supportive, empathetic manager there for them. And 99% of all painting businesses have zero management skills or zero energy for managing. And we need to own that, and we need to fix it if we ever want this industry to professionalize.
Yep. And like you said before, you did 25 years the wrong way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine where you would have been if you had been able to find a community to bounce ideas off of and get support off from, and realize that you aren't the only person in the world with these problems.
Well, you can take, I mean, for me, interesting. You can take a look at my father, who did not have a place for me in his business, and you can see where it is now. And you can say, that's probably where I'd be. And personally and professionally, not on my decision tree.
Mm-hmm. We had this mastermind a couple of weeks ago, which you got to be the next one, because this one is incredible. But Orlando, April 3 and 4, be there. But like at the start of people are walking in, and I heard this as feedback or someone at the end sharing it on like our transfer out. They're like, when I walked in and I saw all of the other owners there, I felt that everyone else had it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And then through the 2 days, we'd like get into, being open and being transparent and being vulnerable. And we had all these like open conversations. And then by the end of the 2 days, I realized that nobody has it figured out. And I think that's what people need to realize. Like, you see that guy driving by with a really nice truck wrapped up in his paint company. Like, he doesn't have it figured out. He just got a nice wrap.
Yeah. And along the lines of all the things that I have come to learn in these last couple of years is, you need to be comfortable with doing what's right and not comparing yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. And it's so easy to look at those tokens of a wrapped van or a new truck or something like that. And none of that is not any form of metric for success at all. Those are the exact opposite of metrics for success, which is they are expenses. Those are the things that will ruin your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, that was a meandering conversation. I didn't know where that was going to go today, but that was a lot of fun.
I love these heady conversations, especially with you.
Yeah. One thing we did recently do actually is this probably interests you while we wrap up is we have like our kind of like our one-on-one coaching community. It's kind of expensive, but like we created like a low ticket, like a really cheap community for anyone who's like starting their business to join, which is really cool. And we're finding that a lot of people just like don't want to invest a lot of money, but they still want a community. So we just started that using the school platform, and so far like it's been really cool to like be able to help people and have something for them that isn't super expensive, but still give them like, that community and support they need.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The more I think, yeah, it's an exposure problem, right? Oh, Wonder Pup wants to get out now. So, um, it is an exposure problem. It's honestly like I am the best avatar for most of the painting industry because it's not that I had the information and I was too stupid or lazy to do anything with it. It's that I didn't know what a successful business looked like. I didn't know that you could have 100 employees. I didn't know you could subcontract. There was a portion in my professional life I didn't know you could spray or pressure wash a house. Like, so there's all this stuff where, at least in our industry, number one, exposing people to the information and what success looks like is literally a number one. And we're going back to the PCA strategy of force multiplication, which is if we literally just put what you do and the PCA and what Ask a Painter does in front of people in the industry, they have a choice to make. Now there's no barrier to success. The information is all there and it's actually either free or not that expensive. So now you need to make a very intentional choice what you want to do in your life. But number one, they need to know that that exists and they need to see a path forward.
Yeah. Marketing is expensive.
Yeah.
That's
Dude,
the hard part.
so and again, it's like, especially when we think about the PCA as a board, every business owner is always like, well, listen, let's buy a list and let's hammer them. And we're going to solve all of our, give me a list of those 330,000 painting contractors. And if we email them enough, we'll get them all. It's never that simple, man. It's never that simple. You got to be very creative about exposing people to this stuff.
Yeah. And there's so much noise, right? People are going to just write it off. I mean, that's why I'm trying to really work closely with Sherwin, because they have the keys to the kingdom, right? If we can get in with Sherwin in the right way and get in front of the right people with the right message, like it'll unlock doors, man.
Mutually exclusive wins.
Yeah.
That's the definition of that. Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. Enjoy your bird hunt. Are you not going to get out today, are you?
No, I won't get out today. But it is the opening day of the first gun season here in Minnesota for deer, and we are going to town all week. So it's like, yeah, you can see the orange out on the table. It's our Super Bowl. We're going to get after it with the kids. So
yeah, right on. Well, save some venison for me, man.
Done. Next time we see each other, I got 150 pounds already in the freezer, man. I'll hook you up.
There we go. Okay. Thanks so much for everything you do, Nick.
Appreciate you, man. Same right back at you.